Welcome into Just Another Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Just Another Chris. And man, do we have a great episode for you today. We have a special guest in the house. Yes, I sit down and have a wonderful chat with Pat Cormick, a fellow YouTuber and content creator. He does film photography, digital photography, and even some instant photography. In this episode, we talk a lot about content creation. We talk about some of our strategies and some of the struggles and some of the things that we go through as creators ourselves. But of course, we will be talking about instant photography, film photography, and a lot of digital photography talk. So without further ado, let's get right on into the episode. Pat, what is going on?
Thank you for having me on the Just Another Podcast, or Just Another Chris podcast. I super appreciate it.
No, absolutely. It's really, really great. I want to start featuring some content creators in general, especially someone that's in a similar field as my channel. My channel is kind of, as you know, retro technology, film, and I see you dabble in that as well. And why don't you start it off? Let the fine people of the interwebs learn a little bit about you, what you do, and what you offer.
I'm mostly a photographer. I handle kind of a little bit of everything. I'm mostly a generalist. I started initially into like street photography. Purely, I have like a whole story on like when anyone asks me like, why do you do photography or how do you get started? Usually that's the question when somebody like meets you in the streets or whatever, or sees you like carrying a camera that isn't like just a standard point and shoot or anything. So usually I go with the story where I started off being into street photography and then eventually just kind of transitioned into portraiture and eventually into studio work. And I still do a lot of street stuff. And in the middle of all of that, I do generally a lot of film work too.
That's pretty cool. So how long have you been creating content on the interwebs, aka YouTube?
So YouTube specifically, I'm at about I'll hit it probably about 2 years with my channel right now. I've made different channels over time, but this is the one that's kind of stuck and the one that I'm most interested in and the one that I'm kind of spent the most time in, purely because it's been one that it's been my passion for a long time. I've shot like pretty much exclusively photos for about 6 years or so. I started in grad school, like really kind of not with my first camera or anything like that, but really when I started to like, this is what I want to do. So, yeah, I've been doing that. I started in TikTok before then and kind of got my feet wet with like video creation, because like making a still image is one thing. Making something that is interesting for 8 minutes is completely different. So that's kind of generally how long I've been doing it, I guess.
Now I see that you do instant photography as well. When did you get involved with that? Because as you know, and everyone probably watching / listening to this, that's a big thing on my channel. So talk about a little bit about what you like about it, and how long you've been doing it.
I initially bought an SX70, the original, probably 3 or 4 years ago. So I had bought my first DSLR, which was what was it? It was an 80D. So after going through all like the usual point and shoots and kind of like the mobile photography stuff, I knew that I wanted to be in photography. So I bought an SX70, and I absolutely initially, I know nobody's going to like this comment. This might be a hot take, but I did not like it initially. I could not figure it out, and I could not figure out exposure and the fact that it didn't have autofocus and just the pictures. I wish I had some of them to show you. I have like plenty of like mine now, but some of the initial ones were literally garbage because of the fact that like, how you would get like blown out skies, obviously, but then they would be really, really red tinted and they just weren't good. So I did not like that at all. And I ended up just kind of returning it, taking it back, and I just wasn't interested. Now, fast forward a few years later, I had gotten into it again, and I saw a bunch of your content. And actually, what's really interesting is like I found one of your first videos, not necessarily your first videos, but the first ones that I saw. And it was purely going through like looking for just Polaroid content. And I found one of your videos, and you had talked about the SX70 with the autofocus with the sonar. And I was like, that's what I want. that's what I want to find. I want that one. That one seems like it's something I could handle. So I've had mine now for just a few months. But I've had the old box cameras. I still have like one of the, well, I actually have it right here, but it's just like the old 90s style. And I've had that one forever. But I love the SX70 for the glass. And um, I love the autofocus. Me personally, I did like a video about this, and I know you have one as well, and yours is way better. So everybody watch that one. But
There's no competition.
uh, no. And it was interesting because not having that and then having it made such a difference for me. When I saw the people that had potentially like gripes about it, I what was interesting with mine, sorry, this is like super ramble, but what was interesting with mine is that it came with the manual. So one of the things that I always heard people say about the sonar was the fact that like what happens if there's something in between you and the subject. And I was like, I mean, it says it in the manual. I mean, you have to focus to the point or whatever if you can, and then adjust from there or whatever. So what I found interesting about that model was the fact that like the things that people didn't like about it, I personally loved. So that's kind of like, I guess, like a really crash course into like instant that I do.
Kind of go back to what you were saying originally with the not like you didn't like it in the first place.
Yeah.
Like shouldn't it? I was the same way. I except I started out with for Polaroid wise, that is. I started out with a well, it was no, it was a it was my 1-step 2 camera, which I absolutely love nowadays. But I didn't know how to use it. I was coming from more of a digital side, and I was just shooting it like I normally would take pictures, and it's not the same. And I was just getting the worst pictures, blown out highlights, magenta colors, because I was shooting in the middle of summer. I didn't know about temperature would have effect on photos, and so everything I was getting was just garbage, and I was wasting my money. Meanwhile, I had just picked up a Instax camera, which was the Lomo square glass, and I was getting phenomenal pictures, no issues whatsoever. So I just hucked that thing almost in the garbage, the Polaroid camera, that is. And then I got an SX70 camera for a really good deal, and was still having some problems with it, but I was starting to get some better like pictures than I had. It was just giving me a different outlook on Polaroid, and so I just sat down and learned it. And I know a lot of people when they first start in instant photography, that's something they have to get over, is practicing. Do you think differently when you shoot instant photography versus 35 or medium format, whatever you film? Is it something that is just a different process?
100%. I would
Right?
say, yeah, it's completely different because it's not it. With the Polaroid specifically, I've used the
Mm-hmm.
Instax, and I'm sure they're very similar as far as like that goes. If you're talking about just how the camera operates, like if you were taking like the old box cameras, whether it's the Instax or the Polaroid versus the newer Instax, as far as like the point and shoots go, um, with that aspect, it is very point and shoot, but it's amazing that you still have, especially with the SX70 that I found, I shoot that thing exclusively now because um, I just personally love the ability to manually do a few things. So that's why I personally like film, whether it's medium format or 35, 120, 645, 67, whatever. When you're using that sort of film stock, those are things that you get to adjust. You're like, just like with a digital, you're literally getting to choose all the different pieces to the puzzle to create the picture.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, what I found was a lot more interesting is that you're less doing the process and you're more focusing on the image and the overall like how it's going to look. So you're paying a lot more attention of like the moment than you are necessarily like, or at least in my case, paying more attention to that moment versus paying attention to ISO, shutter speed, aperture versus like Polaroid shooting. Like the instant stuff is very fun because it takes you out of the like having to be like this super photographer mode. It's you're just taking a photo, and it's also obviously the fact that you get your photo back immediately, even though the cost is like something we can obviously talk about because we both know obviously that instant photography is not the cheapest, of course. So but when you're talking about 8 photos potentially, and it used to be 10, correct me if I'm wrong, right? It's 8 now, it
Yes.
used to be 10.
Yes,
So
it
you're getting
was
less
10.
for more, right?
Hmm.
So in that aspect, like it's one of the most expensive ways to shoot photos, but the fact that it is one, something that you get immediately, two, something that you could potentially give to anyone. I personally love doing that.
A lot of other photographers that shoot film, and they're really, really talented. They're amazing photographers, and then they get an
Yeah.
instant photography camera, and it almost humbles them really quickly in a way,
Yeah.
because like the shots don't look so good, and they think it's just, oh, it's the camera's fault, or it's the film, it's just garbage. No. um, it's just shoots differently. You have to think slightly different. And you said a little, also, which was a great analogy, where like there's puzzle pieces that are just kind of taken away. You don't have to, like aperture. I mean, film ISO is the whole thing. You can't really change that unless you literally swap your film type, right? But you can't. That's not like a digital camera where you can just change the setting to shoot a higher ISO or lower ISO.
Yeah.
But you literally only got the shutter speed, but even that's still in manual, essentially. Not manual, excuse me. It's an auto. That's more accurately. It's in like an auto, and you can manipulate that to your favor a little bit. But that's probably the most skill that's involved when it comes to instant photography, at least in my experience, or at least talking to other photographers, and that you just have to look at your scene and where the light's positioned, and then you can shoot your photos. You cannot operate it like a normal film camera. And I like hearing other people's perspectives, especially film photographers' perspective on instant photography. Like I would love to try Super 8, shooting some Super 8 stuff.
Super 8.
Right? Just I've never shot it in my life. I would love to at least try it once, but just to do it once is going to cost me like $150 just to try it and get 3 minutes of footage, and that's not even counting the money I'll have to buy it, to spend on the camera. So it's like, geez, that's an expensive video right there.
But it'd be so nice too in that aspect where you get like, instead of having to fake the Super 8 like overlays or whatever, like I do for like for my videos or whatever, it'd be super nice just to have like a true to life Super 8.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it would be fun just to mess around with. There's something else I was going to say to that, but I guess there's a lot of other channels out there, I guess, that I can just like live vicariously through, such as Noah from Analog Resurgence. I know he does a lot of that stuff over there, so I tend to watch those, even though I'll never be able to, or excuse me, more accurately, I probably will never get to do it. I know I could go do it, but that's just a lot it's expensive to do. Meanwhile, I'm having to spend all the money on Polaroid film to operate the channel. So my own channel. So do I really want to just do something one time?
Yeah, and I guess that's one thing too, is that you're pushing a lot of Polaroid film. So that's an expensive channel in itself, I can imagine. I think it's kind of tough to even go and spend $100 on like 5 packs or whatever, something that I'm gonna like leave in the fridge for like 6 months or whatever. But you're burning through them like pretty constantly.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten lucky and found this guy that's a Amazon like warehouse. What are they called? He goes to like these auctions that like the Amazon does for like return goods, and buys up pallets of stuff. And every now and then, so most of it's like damaged freight or returns and things like that. And
kind of like the airline thing.
Yeah, kind of like that. Well, there's these places, and near me, I guess they're everywhere now, but I'm near Portland, Oregon, and they've got a pretty huge hub there for Amazon. And this guy goes and buys up stuff, and he accumulates film, Polaroid film, Instax film, and so I'm able to purchase it through him every now and then, and get it for a discount, not like a massive discount, but to save a couple of bucks. But the boxes are always just really not in great shape. But I haven't had any problems with the film developing.
I think it's a passion, honestly, and I know that's like cliche, and I know it sounds corny or whatever, but for me, I would do it for free. I do it for free. I enjoy doing like any sort of photography. I'm a camera nerd generally. So, the fact that there's a community that also finds interest in what I find interest in is enough for me generally, just to make content. Like I said, I initially started with like TikTok videos, and that was like 2 years ago during like the pandemic. So it was a lot bigger at that point, and it was a lot easier to grow when you're talking about like wanting to build your own following. In that same aspect, though, I found more joy than the numbers was like the people that would leave comments or the people that would DM you or whatever, asking you for more like advice or like, um, how did you do whatever it was that you did in that video? Like just the little comments. And that's obviously like transitioned into, for me, YouTube and stuff like that. Now I don't have a big channel of any kind, but at this time, like, even when you get a one-off comment where somebody's like they truly learned something or they were just amazed at how you did something or wanted to know more, that alone for me is like the content growth hack, I guess, if you will, is just like knowing what you want to do, whatever it is, and then enjoying it, because the more you're going to enjoy it, the more your audience is going to enjoy it. And I think that kind of like leads into just building that following. So I don't know necessarily if there's like a hack to it, but I think that's what it would be for me.
No, and that's awesome to hear. Because I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I started doing my channel just for fun. Like I never thought I'd really go anywhere, um, and never really had any plans to try and like monetize it to where I can live off of it. Even though that's always probably in the back of our brains.
Yeah, it's the goal.
It was in my mind. I'm like, man, could I be a YouTuber and just do this forever? It'd be so fun. And but it's nice to hear that other people kind of think that way too, and just it's a passion project, and they just really, really enjoy doing it. I mean, your videos, the quality of them are just top notch.
Don't be blowing smoke now. Now you're just like, well, now you're lighting me up.
But no, like that's what caught my eye initially. It's like, oh, this looks pretty good, and then the stuff that you were doing was similar to mine, and or just a similar interest, and it's just like this is really cool. So that's one reason I really wanted to get you on here and get some more eyeballs over to what you're doing.
I would say honestly at this point I switch between, I have like seasons, right? Like there are times when I get so frustrated with film because how long it takes to process or how long it takes me, especially if it's video oriented. I mean, so I guess if we're talking YouTube, like process, like if someone were to try to get some insight into content creating, as far as like photography, guys will say, like with instant film, at least if you're making your content, you could potentially, right, shoot and film same day, and you would have all of the images. You would know how they all turned out. You would know generally what you're going to end up with as far as your clips inside your video.
Yeah.
So shooting 35, 120, or any other sort of film, you don't get that. You're working on what you don't know, right? So you go out and you shoot, at least with 35, you get 27 or 35 rolls, 26 or 30, 26 or 35. 120, you get 10 frames for a roll. So unless you take several rolls, which is typically the thing, you're kind of limited to your shots. And then on top of that, whatever you shoot today, like for me, if I were to shoot on Saturday, I probably wouldn't like break out all the equipment that it takes to home develop that same day. I would probably do it the next day, because usually even 10 frames could take me a while to do it. That's probably like, I don't know, sometimes it's faster, but realistically it could be something like a 2-hour walk to get 10 frames, just finding the right light or finding the subject that's interesting to you. Because, and I guess this was where I transitioned from street photography, was because street photography was, it's difficult because you're looking for subjects that fit whatever your vision is a lot of the time. And it's a lot of like hurry up and wait, because you're getting to the point where you're going to take the photo and then you're waiting for somebody to pass by the frame to make like a subject fit your overall image or whatever. Versus, I guess, where I went into, which would be like portraiture or a studio, because in that case you're making the content, you're making that photo, so you're not waiting as much, and you have more opportunity. So street photos you could walk away with, like on a good day, even digital, I might take 50 frames or so, maybe 100, let's say, like actual digital photos. But I mean, I'm going to cull those down into probably 10, and then those 10 will actually get edited. And then we're talking about like digital uploads. Realistically, only maybe 1 or 2 will ever see the light of day as far as Instagram goes, for me at least. And I'm a perfectionist. I could literally go off a list here and just be like, look, if you're wanting to get into content creation with photography in general, here's these. If film is your gear, here's this. Like there's a lot that I've learned that's very interesting and niche specific for either photography, for film photography, digital, whatever it is. And I don't think I'm an expert, but it's just things that you notice over time that help you do better at what you're doing. So I'll give you for instance, this is one that I did not know with film photography and home development for anyone that cares about this. One video that I watched made me buy these brown glass bottles, and I use home development. So for anyone that doesn't know, basically you can develop your own film at home instead of sending to a lab. It's super easy. You can do black and white, you can do color, very, very easy process. But one thing that I learned was these glass brown bottles have a really small diameter for the actual hole for where you're pouring, like the pour spout. So I learned a long time ago that I should never have bought those bottles, and I still have them today because I'm too lazy to buy like the better plastic ones that would have a bigger actual spout for pouring. When you go to put in the funnel, basically in that glass bottle, you basically pour either half of your chemical into basically the sink or the surrounding areas, or because this is an exothermic reaction, it basically just, especially with brand new chemical, it'll like spray up. So those are little tidbits that I've learned over time just for like a specific one. Like those are specific things that like you watch somebody's video and you're like, wow, that glass bottle looks really good. And you're like, that's what I want because it's going to look good on camera. But then when you actually go to use it, it's absolutely the wrong idea. You should have just spent like the $15 to get plastic like jugs basically versus $40 for these glass bottles that look good on camera. So I think those are like small things that you have to remember.
I think would just kind of go over most people's heads. So
oh, for nice. Sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Like, what was the word you used? Do you say perfectionist, or you want things perfect or something like that? I was that way in the beginning. I feel like the stuff that I've been doing lately, I've just been more laxed. And just like whatever. Like I used to go out if I was filming outside, I had to bring an ND filter for my videos. Otherwise, it's gonna look like crap.
You're like trash. It's I'm not gonna use it.
Throw it away. Now,
yeah.
I have things I think it's just sitting in the back room collecting dust. I won't use that anymore. You know, things like that. Like I just don't like I care, but I don't care at the same time. Like I filmed with my friend Dave out in Ohio. He's like trying to get the perfect shot, and he started making fun of me because I'm just like, it's fine. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And he's like, I don't know. Like, let's check to make sure like that focus, I nailed the zoom or this and that. I'm like, it's fine. I don't care. It's going to be just
There's literally, fine. That's me. When it comes to especially, photo and video, I'm probably worse with video than I am photo because at least when it comes to photo, I know that I'm good with Photoshop and I'm good with Lightroom. I can usually make things work. And by all, like if this was another tip, if you ever get a bad photo, you can always make it black and white and it will probably turn out pretty good. But when it comes to like video, I am super precise. Like the fact that, so I used to shoot over here initially in my older videos when I first moved in, which was about 2 years ago or so. And I loved the window light. And I wanted the window light because I thought it was amazing, right? But one thing that you will learn about window light when you shoot is the fact that like it's always changing. It might be like you're not getting that constant like a continuous light, right?
Yeah. My client, I have a
client,
that
one thing
is pretty much dictated by the sun because it's mostly window lighting, and she doesn't care. She uses an example for her students to learn from. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I mean that alone would like the inconsistency would be enough for me to throw the entire video away because it's not consistent. And that's what I'm talking about with perfection is like if I set lights and it looks good and then I do an entire like 2-hour shoot trying to like make a talking head or something and it doesn't come out right, I will throw the entire thing away and start over because it just doesn't look right. And I would much rather be on the other side of that where like done is better than perfect. I would much rather be on that side.
Yeah, you can always be better in the next one. See,
that's
like,
right.
I was for years and years. I felt like that. And again, everyone's different. Everyone does things way like their process is different. And I just love learning and hearing about other people's. I find it fascinating. I'm always looking to improve, myself and how I do things. But for me specifically, I wanted to know everything. I wanted to be I wanted to know every single piece of knowledge before I ever made anything. which is stupid. You can't get, good at anything unless you practice, right? Unless you do it. I basically let myself get to a point where I was a perfectionist, and it would stop me from creating and stop me from, being just a content creator in general. And so
you just don't do anything.
yeah. And then I started watching other people's stuff. And for instance, Peter McKinnon, when he came to his height of his popularity, he, which is a whole other topic, but I was like, there's been a style I wanted, and in my head, I knew what I wanted. I couldn't translate it into my fingertips and make it happen until I saw his. I'm like, that's the thing I've been trying to do. And so like I was watching him and watching all these other people, and then eventually somehow, I don't know how it happened, but my own voice, my own style, my own creativity was not even there anymore, because I needed it to be perfect, just like everybody else's stuff. And once I stopped kind of watching all those other people and doing my own thing and not caring as much, it's like, oh, whatever, I'll fix it in the next video, and I was making so much more, so many more videos, so many more things, because at the end of the day, it's about the topic and the knowledge, and that's what people really gravitate to. Looks are great. Sure. I mean, yeah, I just said it earlier. Your quality of videos is what caught my eye. But I stayed for but I stayed for, the topic, not for how it looked, or any of that stuff. I stayed for what, what you're talking about, and the subject matter is really what I'm getting at. And so for me, kind of summarizing, I let myself just like try to be too perfect, which made me way worse. In my humble own personal opinion. So I stopped caring as much. I still care, obviously. I have a flow for things and detail, and I'll still reshoot some things if I don't like it. But if something is slightly out of focus for a B-roll shot, I'll let it slide. I don't care. It's just going to be there for a second or two. No big deal. If I'm shooting a talking head near a window and there's a couple of, like a cloud rolled by for like 3 or 4 frames or just like 10 seconds, it's okay.
You know what I thought too? Like, one thing that has helped me with that, like, mentality, it's almost like the, I forget what they call it, where you're an expert in something, and then you feel like you're like, what is it? I'm trying to think of the actual, like, imposter syndrome. That's what it is. You feel like you're supposed to be the expert or whatever, and that no one else is going to like understand. Like, you want to be the know-it-all. You have to know it, everything, right? But I was thinking, like, I think one thing that really changed my perspective when it came to, like, if anyone were to get stuck in that rut, what helped me in that case was like, I mean, I have to take my own advice with this one, but when you think about how long someone is going to see it online, especially with photos, right? No matter what kind of photos they are, if they are going on some sort of social media, they're literally quarters, fractions of seconds. So, I mean, is it worth your time? For me, one thing that I used to do was like, I would do a ton of photoshopping for individual things in the frame. Like if it's leaves on the ground and there's not a lot of leaves out, or if there's a trash can or something like that. But realistically, when you're talking about a 4:5 cropped image onto a screen that's no bigger than about 5 inches, how long is somebody going to notice that kind of thing? So, like, is it worth your time? Is it worth spending 2 or 3 hours to do that Photoshop work when you could literally just be posting it and moving on to the next thing? And again, I have to take my own advice on that, but I mean, I think it is something to think about too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Cause like, it's something that you're aware of it, and you're like, okay, it's there. I put it there. I don't quite like that, but I'm going to remember that the next time, you're self-improving every time you're doing something. And it's more important to be trying than just to be sitting around talking about you're going to do something about it, like,
yeah. And you're also the creator too, right? So things that you're going to notice, like if I made a photo and you made a photo, like, would you notice the same things that I saw in mine that I didn't like? Are you going to see my blemishes like I do? Probably not. You might see other ones, but realistically, I think that's what, like, the good thing about perspective is that, again, like, is it really worth spending another 2 hours going through that Photoshop? Because realistically, you noticed that trash can because you were there, you took the shot, like you edited it for however long you edit for, right? Versus that simplicity when it comes to, like you're saying, with like or that I guess we're saying is with when it comes to like instant photography, what's so nice about it is literally point, shoot, move on, get on, like move on with your day, right? Get on to the
Yeah.
next shot. And I think that's what comes really well with certain styles of photography versus like when we talk about someone like Peter McKinnon, or if you were talking about like traditional like old photographers like Ansel Adams or anything. Like,
Mm.
I mean, are you shooting for that realistically? Because if you are, you're going to have a long way, like a long road. I mean, those people didn't come up and need they didn't come up by themselves. They didn't. It took a long time. Like the ball rolls up the hill very very slowly, right? So in that case, it does take a long time to do that. If that's what you want to do, shoot for it. Like go for the moon, right? But on the other side, if you're just looking into getting into film or photography, digital, no matter what it is, I think realistically, it's all about just like practice, like you said, like enjoying the process. For me, one thing that I love is process. I could literally watch someone that is a pro chef make like a scrambled egg, because they're going to do it in just a incredible fashion that they're going to have like an insight into it, and even that is really cool to watch. And I think that's really nice when you see the pros do their kind of thing, but also you have to remember, like, they're using things, they have knowledge on top of that that you don't have. So
A lot of times the pros are just doing the basics of things and you've just been overthinking it yourself. You know, you're basically trying 10 times harder and doing 10 times the amount of things, thinking that's the process. And then you see a professional do it and it's like, that's it. Like, okay. Or my favorite videos from the professionals are they say, oh, this is how you set up an interview shot. And then they set up 14 different lights. That's going to cost you $30,000 in equipment just to get the shot. And it's simple.
yeah,
It's easy. And think like there's two sides of coins, I know, but
yeah,
I
no, I totally agree. It's and I one thing that I like and that I want, like when I make content, I always think about doing it for the budget. Like I want to be able for anyone that is interested to do it, right? There is one thing that I hate with just anybody that is truly like the pro, the top of the like the tier, is like that you make content that is outstanding, right? But realistically, no one ever is going to be able to do that. So if you make a how to and you're in Dubai, like how many people are going to go to Dubai, right? I would love to go, but realistically, that's not like an option. But if you were to show somebody like what's the iron triangle, like are you show like if you're going to teach them ISO, aperture, shutter speed, or whatever, that is something that everyone can play with
mm-hmm,
by simply buying just a cheap like $50 camera, right? That,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't even have to be that expensive, but I think there's a difference. Like I hate seeing companies do it. I don't like seeing creators do it. I want to see, that's cool, make the like the bucket shot, those great like high mountain pieces of content, but then also make something that's more realistic. It's just like certain types of music that talk about things that you'll never achieve, but then there's other types of music that are more like geared to just anyone. So thinking about TikToks, there's a lot of people that do it because it's very popular, and it probably got me one of my most liked, I guess, pieces of content before I had my, long story short, TikTok got banned randomly for with no strikes, nothing. But I mean, that's like neither here nor there. But one of the biggest pieces of content that I ever had was street photography, and it was simply just doing what they normally would do, is like wearing a GoPro kind of thing, getting a point of view shot, and then taking your picture, showing the edit kind of thing. There's a guy that I like that actually does this very well, and it's super interesting because all he's doing is like a long like outside shot with the camera and then showing basically the LCD on the back of the camera. But even that is interesting because that's super basic. That's street photography at its like bottom dollar, right? But then when you notice that it's like a Leica, or it's like an X, what is the Sony one, like the um, A7R5 or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you promote it as this is how a beginner can start, but then you use a $4,000 camera. Like for me,
Yeah.
it takes me out of the, for me, because I know how like the what's gone into doing that, right? It's not just taking a good photo. Like I'm not saying that they're not good photographers, they're great photographers, but to promote it as a beginner's course kind of thing, or how to do it if you were starting out, I don't think it's quite the same. So
No, not
even
at
when you
all.
notice those small things, it can totally change your perspective on what the content is actually giving you, right?
No, yeah, totally. Because especially even when I was just kind of getting into like taking content creation seriously, Peter McKinnon was a bigger, influence at the time for me. Then I was learning a lot from
No,
him.
same.
Yeah, I mean, everyone really. But again, it was a little discouraging because he's whipping out his $6,000 DSLR camera to shoot these photos and do these tutorials and stuff. I'm like, cool. You show us how to light a scene or take some product photography, but you're still using a $6,000 camera. I'd rather see your skill using a $200 camera or a $50 camera or some ancient camera of any kind, and that would be much more valuable to see, because nowadays with digital cameras, you can shoot the crappiest photo and still put out something epic. If you're shooting in RAW, that's your best friend. You can manipulate that thing to no end.
48 megapixels. You can edit it. You can do a lot with like a little at this point. And I think until you like the consumer grade has stepped into partially professional in a lot of ways in my opinion, and we've bridged that gap between what it meant and even 10-15 years ago what it meant to be a professional versus what it meant to be an amateur or even like just a hobbyist. Like, I mean, when full frame is sub $1,000 in a lot of lines,
Yeah.
I mean, you realistically can have 4K, at least like 28, 32 megapixels. I mean, you're really what you're able to get at a reasonable budget for, I mean, it's an expensive hobby. There's no way around it, but comparatively, like full frame was never attainable a few years ago for anything less than a few $1,000s. And now when you're talking about like, and Canon, I'm a big Canon for shooter, and I just, not that I'm like a super fanboy or anything, but it's what I started with. So in that case, when you have the L line versus like your standard camera lenses, when you can make some of the photos that, in my opinion, that I've made with the standard lenses, it's impressive, because I think those are one of those times where you realize that blending those two lines it's coming closer and closer, versus like before it was unattainable. Now, realistically, you could have 100,000 subscribers on pretty much any side or any profile you want with a phone, right? It's all about like what you're actually creating. And I think it goes back to your message about content over like looks and stuff like that. So it's interesting, right?
I tell everybody, they're saying, "Oh, I'm saving up for a camera. I want to get this like $3,000-$4,000 camera." I'm like, "Don't get that for your first one. You can literally go to Best Buy right now, buy a $500 camera, and it has all of the same like pro level features that were around 6 years ago." Like that, and the 6 years ago, this was considered the best camera in the entire world, almost. You can go buy those. Shoots 4K. It shoots, for video wise, shoots 4K. It'll shoot 24 megapixels, and it's like it's all you really need nowadays. Anyway, again, it's going on a phone screen that's not even in 1080. I think most of our phones are in 720. So
yeah. Now here's the question for you, because I feel like I get it in just kind of the things that I do, either from family or friends or anyone else online or whatever. But how often do you get the question as far as I'm looking to get into this, what camera should I get? Like, how often are you getting that question?
Oh, I get it all the time. I'm come from a tech background. I used to be part of other YouTube channels that were tech forward. Did a lot of tech reviews. I'm still a part of a tech channel, Live Streaming Pros. We test equipment all the time. And so I get that question all the time. So Live Streaming Pros recommends the Sony lines of cameras. They're great, but there is a little bit of, I think, a better option out there. And so if you're just getting started, like, I recommend getting the Panasonic not GH series, excuse me, the G6, or is it G7?
I was going to say the GH5 is the one that has the bad autofocus, right?
Yeah, which I own.
Is that the one? Yeah. That's why I was going to make fun of it, because I was like, it's super crispy, but like when you go for autofocus and like video, it's tough.
Yeah, you have to be a manual shooter.
Exactly.
And it actually, point to that, put a pin in it. It kind of ties into something we were talking about earlier. But yeah, it's the G7, I think is what it's called. And it's a 550, something like that camera, but it does it all. Like it has a lot of the same features as the GH5. I don't think the autofocus is that great. You could live stream with it. You don't have to worry about time limit recordings. Like on a lot of these other cameras, you can only record 20 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. Don't have to worry about it with that camera. It is micro four thirds, but it has, image stabilized, internal, and then you can put a lens on there so you get double stabilized shots. So you can handhold that thing and it looks like you're on a tripod. It's got some crazy features. So I recommend, go that route. Plus the lenses are going to be a little bit cheaper just because they're micro four thirds and not, full frame or APS-C. So that's a great starter camera. So that's why I recommend people.
Well, the reason why I was thinking about asking you about what kind of camera you would get is like, that's always the hardest question I have for me, is because like I don't know what you shoot. I don't know what you like to shoot right later on. And then on top of that, like, are you going to be okay with being locked in on one company for probably a while?
The one reason I like to recommend people to the G7, pretty sure it's what it is, the Lumix Panasonic G7, is it comes with a kit lens, and you just use that for a while. And then once you're ready, if you feel like you're ready to upgrade, to sell that camera and get something else. You're not committed, you're not, maybe get another lens. They're just going to be so cheap because that camera is going to be the cost of a one lens, right? In lenses,
I mean, $500, yeah, easily, right? That's
you buy
one.
On the cheaper end for lenses in this world. So I just tell people, get that camera, it comes with a lens, stick with it for a little bit, find out if you like it, sell it, or just use it as a backup camera. Or in my case, it would just probably end up being one of my secondary cameras for like an overhead shot for live streams and product reviews, things like that. Because it will work with all my systems and stuff. So just having
that's what I did with mine.
Yeah, and it's cheap. I know to some people that might not be cheap. Yeah, so I was talking to my sister and I recommended the G7. And she's like, "Well, that's so real. That's so expensive. Like, I can't get a camera that costs $500, $600, whatever it is. I think it's like $550 or somewhere in there." I'm like, there is no other camera that you can get that's like an entry level camera that's still considered that, other than a point and shoot little pocket camera, like those cyber shots or whatever with the lenses that pop out. So in this world, $500 is cheap. It really, really is. There's not a lot you can buy for less and get great results, unless you use your phone or something, because phones are starting to really do some really nice stuff. But it always will come down to the glass, and you can't really mount glasses onto your phones outside of moments. But even then, that's still not the same.
Yeah, it's different.
It's definitely different.
Are you color grading your footage too? Like, would you typically color grade, or is this more for like your clients?
That's another great point. I used to, man. I throw on LUTs and do the cinema bars and 3-minute coffee montages.
Yeah, coffee montages.
No, I never did one once, but that was a Peter McKinnon call out there.
Yeah, no, I'd love to do it. Mine would never look that good though.
So I used to do all that. I took it so seriously, but it was slowing me down. And I felt like I wasn't even being creative. I was focusing too much on the back end and creating it than the actual subject of whatever it was. And so now I don't. On my stuff, I'll throw on, I'll color correct it enough. Like, it's a little dark. I'll just brighten it up a little bit and just call it good, whatever. Minor stuff. Now, for client work, it's different. I'll try and make it look as crispy and beautiful as possible and tweak things if I can. A lot of times, though, I'm mostly a video editor right now for people. I'm only working with I guess I'm working with two people locally that I'm shooting and stuff. But most of the stuff I just get from them and have to piece it together and give whatever they give me is what they get for quality wise. So, but yeah, kind of going back to what I said earlier. But I don't do a lot of it for my own personal stuff unless it's a specific project for myself. Then I'll throw on some heavy color grading and get creative that way. But usually those are for like documentary works or things like that or short films that I'm working on. But for YouTube videos, I do minimal to those. Kind of like what you said, like it goes on the internet, they're going to watch it and then they'll never watch it again.
It'll be gone, right?
So it's like,
that's what I'm saying.
Are you going to spend that time? Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. So I've tried so many times to do it, and I even tried to get involved into like DaVinci Resolve because
Mm,
just from what I've heard, everybody says like it's like the Premiere when you want to do color grading, anything like that, like pay for it, it's worth it, that kind of thing.
yeah,
And I was like, "No, I'll dip my foot into it realistically." And I was like, on top of it, it was kind of when my Premiere or Adobe Suite kind of was going out or whatever. So I was like, I mean, it's also not a monthly subscription, which I like. I wish Adobe
yeah.
would get rid of that, but that's just my opinion. But like,
That's
I
what
was
to
like,
say.
yeah, for real, for real. I hate it, but it is. I totally
Yeah,
understand. But I come from so in 2008, I bought my first Mac and bought Final Cut, and that was the best thing in the world because in like Final Cut at that time, I don't know what it is now, but it was like $300, done deal. That's all you had to pay for. Now you have the software versus every month, and it's like $50 for the whole suite now, so it's pretty expensive. But that's a
yeah.
side point.
Well, no, yeah, and Adobe they've got even Premiere. I'm a Premiere editor, um, only because that's what I started on, and time is
Same.
money, you know. And so if I need to uh, work on
Like, are you going to
something,
relearn
you have to relearn
all of
something.
that?
Yeah, and I know I need to. I need to learn Resolve. I really do. I keep hearing amazing things with it because it's not timeline based. It's like a node based editing, and the thing is, when you buy a Blackmagic product, it comes with the Pro
The
version
software.
Studio for
Yeah.
free as a bonus. The software alone is free for just color grading and editing and stuff, but there's a lot more to it, and it's a one-time purchase. And I think if each update they is free up until the next version, I think then maybe you have to buy it again. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure, but the software is I think like $300, $400, and it comes with the freaking camera. There's no excuses these days. I hear people all the time I talk to. They ask me what I do, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting into that. I'm learning and doing this stuff. I'm like, hey, what have you made? Oh, I'm not making anything yet until I know everything, basically. Or they I don't have a camera yet. I'm like, use your phone. Or how much money do you got? There's no like technology nowadays is just I think people are using it as an excuse to get going and start creating because there shouldn't be an excuse. It's so relatively available. All this free stuff that you can actually do, and the cameras are crazy cheap. Like this cinema camera that I'm using now. This camera came if this camera came out like 10 years ago, this would have been probably $10,000 camera, like a red camera, same settings, same everything. So it's like
Yeah.
now it's like you can buy a used
Exactly.
one for like $700 maybe less.
I mean, give it a couple of years, and I think it's gonna be the trickle down effect the same way with Red. I would love to see Red do a like an actually affordable for the masses camera. Now it would be they would strip back a lot, I feel, but I mean, just having the ability to shoot in something that is, I don't know, if you wanted it, I think it's worth it. I just think like the when it comes to Red, like I love seeing all of the YouTube creators using them. And it's interesting too that they're all running like the 8Ks now because they're wanting that like 4K is now become, and in my opinion 4K is not like the biggest thing in the world. It's not my like what I would say is like usually when somebody that I like, if anybody asks me as far as like should I get this camera or whatever, and they're like, and I'm not a huge like I love video, I love making videos, I'm not super knowledgeable in video, but when somebody's like I'm gonna get it, it shoots 4K, I'm like, think about it. Is it really worth it when you're talking cost though? Like 4K is nice, especially if you're going to do cropping, like if you're going to start in one location and drop down or whatever. But on the other side, if you're talking about um, like what it's going to cost to purchase that camera versus something that only shoots 1080, and 9 times out of 10, this is like purely from me, I have 4K. I rarely use it. The only time it realistically ever sees 4K is when I do talking head for my videos, and that's purely because um, I'm able to do it and not have like the crop in for me doesn't like matter as much because I use an APS-C lens, so it like reduces that crop a little bit. I use the EOS R for anyone that's wondering or whatever, but in that case, that is the only time realistically that I ever use 4K. And it's cool, it's nice, but for me, not worth the money. And then when you're talking about like the um, the 8Ks and anything like that, like YouTube already crunches like videos so hard
Ooh,
anyway, and I mean, for those creators that have 2 million followers, 8 million, I mean, you're talking like Linus Tech Tips, one of my favorite people on YouTube. Like for them, it makes sense. They have a production company. They have someone like that is handling that kind of like work or whatever. Beyond that, again, you more than just the camera, do you have a system that's going to push that? Because now you're talking about like a 4K file at 10 minutes, and you were talking codecs as well, and I'm sure that plays into it as well. Like 10-minute file could be what, 15, 20, 50 gigs, something like that. I mean, comparatively, usually what I do is like if I shoot 4K and I shoot maybe, well, let's say 30, 40 minutes worth of content that I'm going to boil down into 8 minutes, that's 150 gigs. So I'm using an older like system and it chugs for me. So, I mean, most people that like think about cameras, they don't think about what it comes into also, like the surroundings with it. It's like, that's fine if you want to shoot 4K, but do you have the system that's also going to like handle that kind of workload too? So are you upgrading everything, right? Tell me this. Have you ever had that experience? Maybe not as much anymore, but definitely probably first off, if you were shooting street photography, did you ever have that experience where you're potentially in a crowd of people and then you're like, you kind of get like stage fright, like you don't want to take pictures, you get weird about it? Have you ever had that experience?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, all the time. I mean, it just takes practice and just get over yourself a little bit. But yeah, totally.
Right. So I think of that like that's what you need to work on. Not necessarily should you worry about getting the most expensive camera? You need to practice taking photos in a place where you're going to feel nervous. Like I've heard people talk about vlogging. I would love, and obviously like vlogging's been around forever, but I personally love that content. I would watch that forever. I love watching anybody's day. I don't know why, but it's just like, it's so interesting to me, especially like when I'm sitting here, like kind of at the end of the day, not doing anything, just watching what they're doing or whatever. But for me, making a video in public is super tough versus like sitting here and talking to the camera. So having that experience, I think, is way more helpful than it is like to spend it on like gear. Just,
yeah,
I know it sounds cliche, but it is true. It's real. Like when you go out and you feel nervous, you don't shoot. So you have like biggest thing for me when I bought cameras was like, or when I bought my first camera was street photography. The reason why I got into it, it's easy. You're walking out in places that you would normally walk out anyway, and you're just enjoying going to shoot or whatever. But then on the other side, like I wanted to have subjects. I wanted to have people as subjects. And then when you have that aspect that you're going to take those photos and then you get nervous because people are staring at you, your photos come out weird and you don't like it, right? So in that aspect, like if you are comfortable doing what you're doing, and I have little things that I do with that too, but initially I think that's way more important than actually whatever gear you're using. Just like being able to handle hearing the shutter sound and then having somebody stare back at you kind of thing is a like way bigger tip than like people worry about 4K, for instance. I don't know. That just might be me though.
No, you're totally correct. And that's a great point to share, because that gets overlooked. Everyone's focus is more on the tech rather than the actual process of utilizing the tech or just being in public or being in front of the camera, all those types of things. Even if you're in an environment like this, like I'm inside, I'm by myself and talking to the camera, that's its own little skill that you have to learn. You have to know how to talk to the camera, keep things flowing, things like that. But it also comes down to the content that you are creating. Like I go out and I'll shoot some videos. I've been doing it for so long now where mostly I'm fine. Like I don't really care that too much. But if I'm sometimes I'll still get that feeling of like, this is kind of weird. I'm kind of shy and I don't really want to make something. When I'm by myself, if I'm with somebody, like my friend Dave, he's this way. So Dave, if you're watching this, shout out to you, buddy. But he's this way, and I have to almost convince him and like encourage him to like, just don't worry about it. It's fine. Just to start, we're in our own world. There's this funny like video I'd seen online where somebody had mentioned that everyone's just an NPC.
Living in your world.
Yeah, and you just go out. No one's paying attention to nothing. They're just doing their own thing, and they may say hello or whatever. They're just like, you just do it. Just do your thing. No one's really paying attention. They may kind of glance over there, and hey, maybe they did notice you, and they're like, "Ooh, that's weird." Who freaking cares? What's that matter? Like, they're just gonna go off and forget about you and never even think about you again. And so that's a great advice for anyone that's wants to not even create content, just to go out and take pictures,
take photos. Yeah.
Sometimes, and I mean, we've all experienced that. Sounds like you have as well, but like walking around with a big tripod and stuff, you're drawing attention to yourself, and not everyone likes that attention. So don't worry about the gear. Work on that stuff first. That's a good advice right there.
That is a huge barrier if you're going to shoot anything that deals with people. And that's not just like even if you just like architecture, or you just like shooting cars, or anything like that, anything that is not in four walls that you live in every day. And even then you're dealing with the public, except you're dealing it through like digital basis, right? But I mean, like when it comes to actually physically shooting, I think one of the biggest things that I had to overcome was hearing the shutter and then knowing that somebody's looking back at me. But like, I think as a secondary tip to my original tip, if my original tip was to get better with like just being able to handle crowds and like being able to work in an area, right? I think you gave the best point there. And that is, pay attention to what you're doing, not what anybody else is doing. Nobody cares about what you're doing. I have said this so many times to anyone that has ever asked, like, how do you film yourself and put it on the internet? How do you take photos of people? Like, do you not feel weird or anything like that? I'm like, honestly, I focus on the process. That's my thing. I know that I guess it comes back to that perfectionist thing, but I know I want a specific shot. I want it to look good. I know what kind of, what I'm going to have to put into it as far as, again, shutter speed, ISO, aperture. I know what I need to look at. I will focus on that process, and literally everything drowns away. So like if I don't see it right here inside this little 4x4 square kind of thing, it's not there. So I think that could also help some people, is just focusing on what you're doing and less on what anybody else is doing, because they truly don't care.
No, they don't. And we live in a day and age now where the YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff is just kind of normal. You walk down the street, you're going to see someone with a camera. It's just kind of the world we live in nowadays. And so it's pretty well accepted. So I wouldn't really worry about like the tech and stuff first. Work on that stuff. You pull your phone out, start shooting with that, and get comfortable, and then go from there. And then you can start worrying about the nitty gritty stuff like 4K and megabits and video cards and computers and all that stuff later, because there's so much involved that can go into it. However, but it can be simplified so much, and there are things that are better than others, obviously. But if you're just starting out, you don't need to worry about that stuff right away. Tech second, or even third.
Right?
Hey, real quick, I wanted to remind you guys about the members area. Yeah, there are some amazing perks by becoming a member of the Spitfire Club, such as extended versions of Just Another Podcast, and extended versions of YouTube videos, and early access to said YouTube videos, and exclusive monthly signed photos sent to your door, and access to the members' exclusive Spitfire Club t-shirt. But that's not all. There is now an exclusive members-only Zoom call. Yeah, we have our club meeting. We sit down, we chat, we talk about things that we're into, things that we're struggling with, things we want to improve, and special guest appearances from other like-minded content creators. Ugh, it's so much fun. If you want to become a member today, there is a link in the description below. I'll see you in there. There's channels that I adore that don't follow the normal like trends and the normal way of the changes that come along. They adapt to the change, but in their own way. And I think that's the best way. You can see that there's a flow coming, or like this wave of new thing. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to ride that wave. That's maybe not even for you. And so like everyone's been trying to get me, not everyone, but a lot of friends or other content creators that I chat with, they're like, you need to repurpose your content. You need to edit this down and put it into a TikTok. You need to do a Reels and do all that stuff. Like I could. I don't have a great interest in that. So I'm not going to do it, or I might do it on certain things. Just find your own strategy, your own way with that wave, I guess. But that was my rant. I'm over now.
I mean, now I've got like 15 more things to think about. Like I've just like through your process there, I was just thinking about like in the case of like repurposing content's good.
Yeah.
Um, in the other side, you were mentioning like dealing with I just lost it with the repurposing thing because I was thinking about that. I was like, honestly, I like the repurposing thing. It's just it's tough when you start with something that's horizontal to make it vertical. It doesn't do as well as typically would have done had you not shot it in vertical initially.
Absolutely.
So
There's
you can do it, but it's tough.
yeah. Like if I had the means, aka a team here at my studio, hopefully one day I will. Absolutely. I'd be like, you get on that. You take this stuff, make some, this is your job. You're going to be your only job is repurposing the content for socials, for Instagram and TikTok and YouTube shorts and all that stuff. Absolutely. I think it'd be great. I am one person here. And I put out content pretty regularly. I had a video go out today, actually. And so like content goes out and I'm working on other people's stuff. So it's just like, it's so much work. Which is, the name of the game, basically. You got to keep at it and keep going. There was actually a whole point to that, and now I completely lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I have mine. I just remembered it. I know what I was going
I'll
with.
remember mine when after you say yours.
Okay. So my question for you in this case, you've asked me questions. So this one's like, what do you think on this idea?
You got it.
So
I remember now. Go.
No. Go for it. If you know it, go for it.
Okay. So, I remember it. Yeah. Kind of going back, you said like, it's hard to repurpose your footage type of thing, and for stuff because the whole vertical and wide stuff. Now you do have to. This idea that I had yet to test it, but there's this app called Double Take. It's called
Double Take. Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard that, but so there's this app called Double Take. It allows you to use. The app allows access to all of your cameras on your phone. And so you can record two of them at the same time. So you can record the front camera and the back camera.
Oh, okay.
Right? At the same time? Oh, yeah. More specifically, this app's only on iPhone. Should have mentioned that.
Sorry, Android. No big deal there.
Yeah. So it uses your iPhone's camera, right? Now, set the other camera to wide. And you're recording the same thing at the same time. And now all you have to do is, when editing, chop the sides off. And now you have a vertical format of that same video. And so I think it's a great use for that app to be able to repurpose your content, or just being able to shoot for both. You would have that option. It'd be cool if they had a way to, cool. Yeah, it would be cool if they actually implement an auto crop feature. So it's recording in vertical. That'd be super helpful. But they're not there yet, or it may never happen. But it's a simple editing thing to do to change the resolution or the aspect of it. But just chop the sides off, and you're good to go. So the app's pretty handy. I haven't used it for that yet. It was just an idea I was having about a week or so ago. I was chatting with my friend of mine. He just did a video on the app, and I said, "Hey, this is the idea I had with it," and he didn't think about it either. And so I'm going to try it for a specific video, just for like a YouTube short or something. So we'll see what happens. But what were you going to ask me though? Your turn.
I was thinking about, in the case of like content creation, right? Talking about selecting like what you're going to make, right? Your process, your niche, if you will, right? I know that that's kind of like a word for like a lot of different things, but in this case, like if there's like the levels at which you're going to choose whatever it is you're going to do, right? Like there's photography, then there's street photography, and then there's street photography digital, street photography film. Like are you going to do architecture inside the street, whatever, right? So there's like layers to that. My question for you would be, in the case of choosing instant photography, you mentioned it a second ago, you were talking about like putting out consistent content, and I completely agree. You kill it in that area. You put out a lot of content. I wish I was that fast. I wish I could do that as quickly and as efficiently. So I think that is the key factor in that. My question is like, how do you feel like this, in my opinion, the way I see it is like you've niched to a point that I personally would think would be too niche, because I don't have that kind of idea. Like if I don't even just do just film or just digital, because I like the fact that I could probably touch a lot of things. And I'm sure you've talked about this previously, but I know you mentioned, other than the fact of like having the passion for it, obviously, and that could be the answer too, but how do you continue to come up with ideas for something that is, I mean, generally pretty, like
Small.
it's the tiniest piece. And I find it interesting because like every
Yeah.
time I think about my, like, where I'm like, God, I have no idea what I'm going to do for a video. I have nothing to make, like no content possible. There's nothing. And then I watch your videos and like, you're really small niche, but yet you make it work every day. So I'm like,
It's a question that I've asked myself for at least the last couple of years. I know the audience or the community of instant photographers it's small. It's a very drop in the bucket type stuff. If you go look at Polaroid's YouTube channel, I think I even just passed their subscribers, to be honest. I'm
wow, I did
pretty
not
sure.
know that.
At least maybe an older one. I looked not too long ago because I was having a similar conversation with my friend Dave about this because and then I'm like, I looked them up. I think they had like 9 or 10,000 subscribers or something. It might have been one of their older ones because it did say Polaroid Originals. So there's that too. But I know it's a small community of people that I'm targeting, which is fine. Like I'm passionate about it. It's a hobby of mine. I work in the the digital world, like we've already kind of talked about, and so it's nice to step away from that and do something a little bit more fun and relaxing. I don't have to think about it too much, like the settings and things. I can just push a button and be done. Obviously, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's the core essence of it. But coming up with ideas is something that I thought I'd be worried about. But I got a whiteboard out front that I just write down my ideas, and as I'm editing the video, or I'll get a comment on a video that's pretty specific. I'm like, that'd make for a good video, and I'll write it down. Or sometimes, if I come up with an idea for like a video, like I don't know, a popular one is the Polaroid Now Plus. People like that one because they love my point of view on it and how bad it is. I won't give I give a lot of information in my videos, but I don't always give all of it. I purposely will leave certain things out to continue the conversation so I can make another video later. So I try to be thorough as possible. Like, so if I'm doing a camera review, I'll go through it all and all of that stuff. But I might not elaborate on certain things. And then that way I kind of test the waters if people are even interested. If people leave comments about it, I'm like, cool, that's good. That means I can make another video entirely just about that specific thing. So I am also not afraid of repeating videos with new information if possible, always. But I will continually remake the similar video about like the top cameras, the best cameras to purchase, type of thing. But I always add in a little extra to it, even though it's the same. Like I'll add in the best camera to buy in 2023, which I'm getting ready to make that video probably in a week or two. I always release it in December. And they always do extremely well, even though it's kind of the same camera, or excuse me, the same videos about the same cameras. So there's things like that where you can take one video idea and branch it off into like 5 if you think about it. But sometimes it's not just one and done and you move on. Now, the idea of expanding the channel, because I don't foresee my channel breaking the 100K of subscribers just on instant photography, because I don't think there's enough people that would like to subscribe.
Are there 100,000 people shooting instant film, you think?
I think so I gauged like Polaroid's Facebook page for this exact question, because they think they have like 500,000 likes on Facebook. So there's at least 500,000 people that like Polaroid, right? So
and they're active too.
Yeah. So I'm considering those as like a target range. However, on YouTube, it's a whole other thing. People like don't really the casual people like, oh, I remember Polaroid when I was a kid. I'd like their page, or whatever. Those people, yeah. They're not really good at engaging. So I don't foresee taking instant photography to the range of like 100K subscribers or even beyond. So I implement a little bit other stuff like film photography, and I know that will get will get me there if I wanted to grow the channel more than that. But I kind of like having a smaller channel, at least right now, because it's more manageable. I can interact with people more. I can get more personal with them. Like I just opened up Zoom calls, or like group calls basically for my Patreon members. It's not a huge following there, but it allows me to get in front of these people, and they're literally talking to me kind of like we are right now. And we can just chat, have a good time, set goals for each other. And if I was a channel with 100,000 or more subscribers, it'd be great to do it, but it just wouldn't be that practical, and people probably wouldn't get much value because they wouldn't be able to really talk or engage, with me specifically or whatever, because there might be 300, 400, 500 people on the call. I mean, for me, it'd be great because, hey, it's Patreon, so I'll probably be making a good living off of just that. But I like to provide a little bit more value than I don't want to say most people, but I just like to provide more value for people's buck, if that makes sense. That's why I like to do that. But to bring around back to your question about the content stuff and how do I go about it, like I haven't found like any, at least right now, like I haven't found an end. I keep coming up with ideas, and I thought it'd be a problem, but it so far it hasn't. I got a board full of other things. And I want to start incorporating a little bit more of film photography, but I'm not a film photographer. Heck, my secret that I tell people is I'm not even a photographer. I just enjoy taking instant photography, photos and things like that. It's fun. I know I'll occasionally go out and shoot digital photography too, but I would never consider myself a photographer. It's just a hobby, I suppose. But I love retro tech and things. That's always fun to talk about. So that stuff comes in. It's not as popular as my instant stuff, which is fine. But so far I haven't run into any problems. But I guess the main thing is, for advice for anybody, maybe even yourself, give the people the information that they are seeking, but leave some room to elaborate and make more content out of that one topic. That's a great tip I would give anybody that wants to make YouTube videos. So there you go.
I mean, that's great. That's better. It's generally a better idea than anything I would have come up with for that question, because when I think about how do I create things, it usually comes off of, usually what I find is trying to find the things that I would typically search for and then branch off from there. And I guess mine comes from like SEO or search engine
optimization.
Right. Thank you. Optimization. I was thinking organization. Right. So like I'm thinking about the numbers first, which is not always the way to go about it, because I'm thinking, for instance, not the most recent video I did, but probably one or two back at this point, was about the new iPhone. So I knew that I was going to get the new iPhone this year. I knew I hadn't upgraded in a long time, and I've wanted to make one of those like first day, like the day that it comes out, one of those videos. So I did a pre-order like weeks or like the day that, or I guess it opened on a Tuesday or a Thursday or something like that. And I was in the Verizon store on Sunday doing the pre-order for the new phone or whatever. And long story short, Verizon like had this whole deal, and I ended up not getting it for like weeks. Right. Oh, way beyond the actual day. Right.
Yeah.
And like what boiled down to it was the fact that like I didn't get to make the content that would have been like piping hot at the time that I wanted to. Yeah. And I was almost willing to be like, you know what? It's not even worth it now, because like I've missed the boat in a way. So I usually think of it in that case as like, especially when I'm trying to initially grow the channel, I'm thinking about how can I do it not super fast. I'm not looking for like a get rich quick scheme, but also I am looking for those moments where there are things that are particular to a niche or particular to a group of people that they might search for it more often or whatever. So I'm always thinking about how can I take what would typically be a topic that is not really probably your first search, but it might be something like if you fell down the rabbit hole or whatever. So like trying to link it into other videos.
Yeah.
Not
So
always does that work, but usually where I go with it kind of initially.
so in that case, like the best strategy for YouTube or content creation is title, thumbnail, then your video. The video is the last thing you think about. So in your case, you didn't get the phone. So what, instead of, I know you released the video, but even if you waited to release it, it actually could have been a better deal, because you could have titled the video iPhone 14 Pro Max Super Duper, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
2 months later, how it is
Yeah.
after 2 months, how is it, type of thing like that. Take that angle or that approach to it, because then it's like a brand new topic. It's a brand new thing. Like, ooh, day one's cool. I've already learned all the features, but like, how is it after some actual use? So that's a lot of things.
Problem with the iPhone though is like we're in so many generations. It's
sure.
almost like it's a season, so it doesn't work with like. I think that's a great idea. I just don't know if like there are plenty of those videos out now too, right? Like 2 months in, or what I don't like now, or what I do like now that I didn't like, or whatever. Like the iPhone is so tough to make content for because it's so many generations in that we've seen that transition or whatever. So it's interesting because I talked about kind of like this channel, but initially like probably like 08, 07, when I was like 15 or so, I had a small channel that I did like, this is iPhone like 4 3G back in the day. Like I've had every iPhone up to this point pretty much, well, until I didn't upgrade or whatever. But God, everybody's making content about the purple one. I need the purple one because that's the one that's going to be in the thumbnail. I was literally thinking the thumbnail when I bought that phone. I was like, I need that one. I mean, you could, but I was like,
my photos, my thumbnails are faked a lot of times. I literally used a AI generated camera for one of my thumbnails, and I've done a lot of times. There's like little Easter eggs in my thumbnails, especially with when I'm
don't tell me that now. I'm gonna have to go back and look at them.
When I hold up like packs of film and stuff, I will like change the text and stuff on there, or like for instance, like one of the Polaroid ones, if you look closely, it'll say 88 photos in the pack.
Oh, see, now I've got something. I got homework.
It's just random stuff like that. Nothing too crazy, but I fake thumbnails. You could have easily faked yours and just put it purple.
I mean, I could have, but I don't know. Just when everybody was talking about, I bought in the hype. I really did.
You could have been holding up the phone and just literally put like masking tape and just wrote the word purple on it.
Purple, that would have been good too. And be like,
it would draw attention. And be like,
exactly.
What? Things like that. There's the whole strategies involved for that sort of thing.
Totally agree. It's funny that it's almost like the anti-culture kind of thing is like really popular, and I love it. It's almost, I guess it's like what film realistically is in 2022. It's like the just exact opposite of like digital, right? And the fact that any sort of film, whether it's instant or not, is the fact that like everything's so fast and like everybody's competing for the top-notch photo. So it's like, you know what, screw it, I'll go exact opposite and we will make it look low-mo. And like I personally love the low-mo look, so I don't know, like I like the idea that, I mean, at a certain point, like we can only get so high on the digital scale when it's like we were talking about with 4K and stuff like that. Like, can my eyes really tell the difference between 4K versus 8K? No, it can't. Like, on top of that, I wear glasses. Like, me personally, I can't tell the difference. So, like, when it comes to
like for real quick on that thing is the 8K, 12K, 6K even really only applies to filmmakers making films, because then they're not going to be exporting it out in 8K for all that sort of stuff or higher. They're going to put it out in 4K. It's probably the max.
Yeah,
it's just great to have that extra data in the
down
files.
Res.
So you can manipulate the footage and do some post processing for like color grading and all that stuff. That's really where it comes into, and a lot of people overlook that thought. So if I had a 12K camera and I'm editing, I could like do some crazy one camera like zooms and stuff. So if I had like doing an interview with two people next to me, I'm shooting in 12K, I could crop in and with no loss of detail, and then boom, it gets exported out at like 1080. So that's really what that stuff comes into play. But anyway,
and I think that Well, I was just thinking in that case, like I like the aspect that we've moved, like, and I don't think it's a new thing or anything like that, but I just like the fact that when it comes to a certain point, when people are like, maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia, maybe it's a little bit of that anti-culture when it kind of blends, and it's just the idea that, you know what, everything is so just geared towards being the best that I don't need to be the best. I can just like enjoy the process again. So I guess that goes back to the original thing, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to see with film like of any kind that we are not trying to compete. Like I think honestly this might be another hot take for anybody, but I think the film community, no matter where you go online, is way nicer than any other community. They are literally some of the most helpful people. They are literally some of the most genuine people when it comes to like if you're asking them questions or you just like you're posting a photo and they're just there for the stoke, you know, they're literally there. And I'm pretty active on Twitter, not like super Twitter, I guess I should say. But honestly, I love the film community on Twitter for simply that. It's just when you have that aspect of people that you are okay with, like you can post the photo and it doesn't have to be the best photo. And I think like that's kind of what I miss with Instagram from like 2010 was the fact that literally you could post, you weren't worried about the feed, right? You weren't worried about the grid.
Yeah.
And I think before Reels, uh, it was very much still that effect. I mean, that was still a lot of people follow that kind of the grid thing, and I get that. But like up until Reels started breaking it apart, it was pretty much like a golden or like a gold standard. Like you didn't break the grid; it needed to be formulated or whatever. But now with the implementation of the videos, which you're not picking thumbnail or you're not making thumbnails for your grid or whatever, it changes the
Hmm.
way that the grid actually looks. For me, that was like one of the best things. Like I like Reels generally, I guess, whatever for vertical content.
Hmm.
But when it comes to actually breaking the grid, I love that because for me specifically, I cannot. I one of my things that I'd love to ascertain or achieve as a photographer would be a curated Instagram wall, like where it's literally your feed is just like the Peter McKinnon, right? Changing from seasons. It's
Yeah.
brown and then it's light green and then it's beautiful white or whatever through the seasons. I will never be able to achieve that because the looks of my photos will never typically, and they don't apply like that. Like, I mean, I've been sitting on this one for a minute. This is one that I shot a few days ago, and it's like I shot it with gold 200, so it's going to be really gold. It's going to be really yellow or whatever.
Hmm.
But then on the same aspect, like I might go the very next day and shoot something at a different time of the day. Like this is shot at like 9 or 10 in the morning. If I shoot something at 11 or 12, it's not going to be like that color. So
Right.
inevitably it's going to look completely different no matter like how you try, like it's going to look different. So I've always found that interesting when people can do that, but I think that's also comes back to the fact that I like the perfectionist aspect, and like you can't be a professional unless you have a curated Instagram wall, or you can't be a professional unless it's seamless or whatever with your transitions. Like realistically, I think that you can be that anti-culture that people enjoy. Like there's one guy that I find very interesting. Like he's got an it's just a different tone, I guess we'll say. But have you ever seen the Grainy Days guy from YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen it
Okay,
pop up.
right.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen his content? Have you ever seen like watched the video?
I mean, I think maybe a while ago. But
Okay.
no, I haven't really watched too much of it of his stuff.
Okay. So he, in my opinion, he's a great photographer. He's like a film guy, and he uses a
Hmm.
Pentax 6.7. And honestly, it's been one of the like main reasons why I've ever like been interested in that camera. I would love to buy one, purely from
Hmm.
watching his stuff. Like shoots the same thing as the RB or whatever, but in that case, it's just another form factor. But when it comes to like the way he does content, I think it's interesting. Like, yes, he makes dumb jokes or whatever, and they're like, in some cases, like, um, well, I don't know, just like lowbrow potentially, I guess. But
Hmm.
the way he's like monotone through it or whatever is interesting to me. It's not like super hyped. He's not doing incredible cuts. He's not like David Dobrik in that case, you know, like every 3 seconds make a cut, make a new
Yeah.
scene, like that kind of aspect. I think that's why I like the film photography when it comes to like YouTube videos, is because it is just a lot more relaxed. It's very um I don't know, maybe the same
Chill.
aspect is like yeah, exactly. Chill is a good word for it. I was going to say ASMR, but it's not really like that. It's just the fact that it's like it's a vibe. It's very subtle. It's
Yeah.
easygoing. It's not intense.
Yeah, and that's the kind of going back to where the people I'm focused on. Those are people I want to be in my community and watch my videos. The people I'm making that for. The fast-paced cut stuff that Dobrik does or Mr. Beast does and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It draws in all the people with a short attention span. They're not really going to provide much value in the long run for you know, the audience as a whole, to like provide like help in any way, assistance, or leaving comments and start conversations. All they're there for is to help you get that subscriber count higher, you know, and that's fine. Like, I mean, I'm kind of a lurker a lot of the times. Actually, for majority of my life on YouTube or anywhere online, I'm just a lurker. I'll watch videos. I'll be a part of groups and just observe and maybe buy something if I see somebody that pops it up on the Facebook group or whatever. I'm like, but that was the extent of it. But in the last couple of years, I've been trying to get out of that little hole, and that's why I started a Discord, and I started commenting on other people's videos. I never really used to do that. And since I've done that, I've already made a bunch of friends like online and getting people like yourself on here. And just like it provides a lot more. And so when I think about that aspect, when I edit my videos, because I'm targeting people like that, they're going to watch a video and, you know, sit and thoroughly watch it, not like click around and, oh, you didn't make a cut, and after 5-6 seconds now you've lost my attention. You know, like the scene. There's still obviously a strategy involved in that, even on my own channel, to try and keep it so it's not like dry and boring. No long run out sentences without at least something popping up, but not that fast. I hate that stuff. So
It is, and it's so tough. Like and his popularity in David Dobrik's case, I guess, came from other things, obviously, but like watching, I don't enjoy watching it, other than the fact that it's they're usually really intense, and it's like some sort of like really gimmicky thing, like it's a really incredible place or it's a cool car
yeah,
or whatever, right? Like that's kind of cool. I don't watch his content, but what I will say
I
is
don't
that
either.
like, right, and I think what's interesting though is that um, the the jump cut used to be the thing that people always went against, right? From location to location.
I lost your camera.
They
Oh, there you
There we go.
go.
So people used to hate the jump cut, and that's literally what it is. It's like cut, 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 moving forward or whatever. And he will. I think it's interesting with his channel because, from what I remember, at least, it's been a little while since I've looked at it, but his content is realistically 3-4 minutes long, and that's before like kind of the TikTok trend has moved us into like 30-second
Yeah,
clips or whatever.
yeah,
So where a lot of YouTube was like, and at one point it was kind of geared that way because YouTube was a thing that you had to hit a certain mark. And you can tell me on this if it's still the same way as a monetized channel, like you'll know more than I will on this. But from what it used to be, is that like 6 or 8 minutes was the mark. Like if you didn't hit 6 or 8 minutes, they wouldn't monetize the video itself. Is that still a thing, or has that changed? Or can you speak on
yeah.
it?
Well, so what I do know is I don't know about that one particularly.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure yeah, that's not the case anymore. However, there is a strategy. If your video is 15 minutes long, then you can add in extra um, uh, ad spots or
Okay.
mid
So
roll
instead of just
roll ads.
beginning in, you get a middle piece.
Yeah, so if it's like, I think it's probably if it's like 10 minutes, you only get one. But if you're 15, you can add in a couple extra, and and a lot of people don't actually know that. You can go into YouTube back end and actually choose where you want the ad to start and stuff. Because sometimes YouTube does a pretty good job about placing it, but sometimes it's right on a weird point. And
It's just like it cuts and you're like in the middle of
yeah,
like a sentence kind of thing.
yeah, so that's still something that I still have to keep remembering to go back in and check. So a lot of times I'll go rewatch my videos on all platforms, like, or see all devices. So I'll go home, watch on my TV, I'll watch it on my phone, I'll watch on desktop, and I'll sometimes watch on my iPad. Just for a lot of varieties of
Yeah.
reasons,
See how it
like,
looks, right?
yeah, see how it looks, sounds, and then also ads. But that's still one thing I keep forgetting to do. but sometimes it's pretty easy to pick out. Like, oh, that was why did I do that? And I can just go in and adjust it by like a couple of frames or something. But I don't try to put in too many ads. Actually, I never add ads unless it's like a really long. Like I did a documentary a couple years ago. It was like a 45-minute documentary or something like that. And so then I think I added in like maybe 1 or 2 spots, almost as breaks because it's a long thing. So I kind of use that as its own like for retention, re-engagement type thing, just because something changed. It did it for me, and plus like might make a couple pennies on that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, I think it's interesting because, I mean, in that case, for what I remember, it was like a thing. And I guess that's why I made like all YouTube videos. Like everyone was making 6 or 8 minute videos, even though in some cases it probably wasn't necessary. Like you didn't need 6 or 8 minutes to make your point, to make that video good.
Yeah.
You could have probably done it in 4, but because of that rule or whatever, people were
Yeah.
extending it. So it's good to know that they've kind of changed that. I figured they had. That was a very old rule, obviously, but
I still think it still has to be a minimum length before you can monetize it. Because I know shorts are only a minute long, and they're only rolling it out for everyone starting in February, I think it is, for monetization. But I think for normal YouTube videos, I think it still has to be at least like 2 minutes.
I mean, 2 minutes is nothing. Realistically, that's like very easy to do.
For you to be able to monetize it. But the 6-minute one, I don't remember. But I do know the 15-minute mark is when you can start adding in extra spots. At least that's how it was.
That might have been I could literally sit here for an hour and a half and watch like 2 or 3 videos because of like they're potentially 20, 30, 40 minutes long or whatever. Like not just podcast episodes. Like I do watch those too, but I mean like some of the other creators like Becky and Chris do like basically Netflix documentaries at this point. I mean,
I stopped watching them a while ago. Got repetitive.
Man, you got to see their helicopter. Like their most recent one is insane. It's incredible, what they've created.
I stopped watching them when they were getting ready to. They had just like bought a house and they were getting ready to move into this house or something, and I stopped after that. But they were cool. But it got repetitive. Like all of the, like I have nothing against any of these people, these creators. They're great. It's just they all became the same. I felt like there's a new camera that came out. Boom! Everyone had it.
Literally, your sub feed is like boom, 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 the exact same camera.
Like, okay, cool. Yeah. Maddie, Peter, Chris Howe, and Becky, and whatnot. They're like they had the same style, the same appearances, the same information. Like except for Peter would throw in his coffee montages, and it's like, dude, we get it. You like coffee. But
I think it's so funny. It's literally, that's what it is. Like if a new piece of gear comes out, it is literally on the feed because I follow every single person that we would just mention, right?
Yeah.
Purely because like they're followed, and I pay attention to them. Usually I don't watch them every day. I don't even watch them every week, but every once in a while, like I sub to them. But I can tell when a new piece of tech comes out because the fact that they all literally must have gotten it beforehand, which you were talking about, right? And then on top of that, they all have the same release date. So literally in a 9 block, it's like 6 of the same videos. It's just whatever they're saying about it. And I find that super interesting. I'm like, is that company are they attempting to get that, like those eyeballs from that many people because they know like all of these creators have this many following, but you would think there'd be an extreme amount of overlap in those cases because of what they do. So I find it interesting that they don't broaden out. Like, should I personally be seeing it 6 times? Like, wouldn't that be a turnoff for me?
No, companies don't care. That just means their reach is
they're doing feeds, well, I guess.
And so they don't care. That they just want the numbers and eyeballs on it. At that level. But like I just stopped watching all that stuff just because I felt like it, like we've talked about before already, like I felt like it was holding me back because it was just filling up my mind with all these things like, what do I get? What do I got to do this? Like I have to be that good. I have to make it look like a Josh Yo video or a Peter McKinnon video, to where I'll even be successful. And especially with all these, camera gears and stuff. I'm like, I got to drop $10,000 just on this camera kit with lens and stuff. And I have to have an Aperture 120D Mark II, otherwise no one will take me seriously because all these other people. It's funny because
that's literally it's the thing, right? It's the same thing. if it's the 120D, those little aperture, the square ones, I hear a lot. Like,
Yeah.
one company is literally pushed by all of them, and it does get repetitive. And I guess the two things that I've wanted to always do when I ever got big, right? If I ever were to have a channel of any size, two things that I always wanted to do. One would be kind of like what you're talking about with the Discord. I would love to have, actually, I'll say it kind of like as a 1A and 1B realistically. I would love to have like a community, like have a like a Twitter space, have a Discord, have whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where anyone can join, and then I will literally sit there for 8 hours, right? Or however long it takes to talk to every single person if I can, right? And work through just ask me a question, like general things, right? Like anything. It doesn't have to even be about a topic or anything. I would love to have that ability to be like, to gather that following and be like, look, we all love the same thing. If you think I do it well, I would love to talk to you about it, kind of thing. I would love to have that aspect, or like a physical meeting space. I would love to do like a big walk or whatever. Like I've seen those, and usually I mean, you're on the West Coast, so like I mean, they happen in California, like from the ones I've seen recently a lot, right? Not maybe not as much, or you
together soon.
Are you? Well, see, 2,000 miles away.
Well, see, the thing is, it's not going to be like a photo walk like everything else. It's going to be more involved. So I'm trying to encourage people to make it worthwhile for them to physically come here. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's not just going to be a photo walk. It's going to be fun. It's going to
you got like an event planning.
It's full on event. Yes, it's going to be an actual convention. Basically, I'm working with some sponsors already and some companies. I'll have like one of the, it's gonna be a multi-day thing, and one of the days will be literally just a full-on party, food, drinks, bands playing, photo opportunities. My studio is gonna be converted into photo ops for like kind of like those little selfie studios that you see in malls.
Yeah,
I'll probably set up something like that in here, and I'm gonna try and get some other creators out here as well to be part of it. And then of course there's gonna be some days where we just go out and walk and film or shoot photos and film, whatever you want to do. Working with a guy that has a pretty cool garage. I don't know if you saw that video that I did on that, or seen the photos I posted, but this guy converted a garage into like this 50s
with all the neon.
Yeah, it's insane. I'm pretty sure he'd be down to have some people over there and film and shoot some photos and whatever for a few hours.
Use it as like a spot, right?
Exactly. And then I got some other stuff I'm working on, but hopefully I'm going to get that locked in next summer, and probably in like June, maybe August, somewhere in there, maybe even September. We'll see. But it's pretty cool. My studio is in a perfect location too, so if people do fly out, it's only like 30 minutes from the Portland airport, and then there's hotels right directly next door, pretty much to my studio, just right here. There's a casino.
Dude,
down
I
the
would
road.
love to see Oregon. I've always wanted to see the West Coast. Like, so, I would love to see it.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest is great. It's got some, literally where I live. So I live on the Washington side. It's easier to say I'm from Portland because nobody knows when I say Vancouver. Right.
I mean, you say Vancouver, I'm thinking Canada.
Exactly. I'm like,
no, 100%.
I'm from Washington. Oh, DC. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
you're like,
Washington State.
The other one.
Washington State. Oh, no, Seattle. No, Portland, Oregon. Oh, yeah. So
that's okay. It's Atlanta here. It's literally like, Georgia, Atlanta, right? And you're like, close enough. I mean, it's like fine.
Yeah. So, but I am only 5.5 hours from Vancouver, Canada. It's just a straight shot. But like literally where I live, within 3 hours, let's say you set a 3-hour time limit, you could go from literally like to a beach, to dunes, to mountains. You could go down to the last Blockbuster. You could go check out the Goonies house.
Dude, the last Blockbuster. I love the content on that, and it was so perfect when I saw your video on that I had literally watched the Netflix documentary. I was like, wow. And I was like, you actually were there? That's so cool. And then I saw your photos and stuff. I was like, how about that?
Yeah. It's down in Bend, Oregon, which is I mean, that's literally 3-hour drive. That's like the max. But if
Oh,
you want
it's
to go
a
to
minute.
Seattle, yeah. But if you want to go to
Yeah.
Seattle, same thing. 3 hours away. You can go up to Seattle and day trip it out. There's like 6 different mountains you can choose from if you want to go hike. Or there's lava tubes
Oh,
from when St.
this right
Helens
here
blew
ain't
over.
hiking. That's for sure. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. This
Well,
right
yeah.
here. No, no, no. Uh-uh.
I mean,
But
if you're into that
I'll
sort of
go for
thing,
the photos.
there you
But
go. But yeah. So where I am is a perfect spot for like photo meetups or some sort of event. But there's nothing. And all these other ones
yeah,
that I see, I don't know, like they're not. There could be so much more. There could be so much more that could be provided to these little events that they're not doing. Like Policon, in theory, sounds fun, but they don't market it. They don't talk about it afterwards. There's no videos to say, "Hey, come out. This is what you missed." There's no video of like, this is what you can expect. It's just, here's a picture of a Polaroid with like labels stuck to it with bands that are going to play. Like, what? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I was literally going to go this year, and I'm assuming you know what Policon is, I'm guessing, but
Bailey, I've heard you talk about it.
oh yeah. So I mean, I don't even really know what it is. Like, I reached out to them specifically, and again, I don't want to. This is not like trying to bash anyone in general. I just think it can be improved upon. But like, I reached out to the Instant Film Society, and I think they follow me because they randomly will share my photos out of nowhere on their stories. I don't know why, but they do. But hey, thank you, Instant Film Society. I think you're cool. But I reached out to them, messaged them like, hey, I learned about Policon. I don't really see much about it. Can you provide any more details? And they're like, yeah, check out our post on Instagram. I'm like, that tells me nothing. Like, I'm reading your post.
Yeah.
That doesn't tell me anything. And so, it kind of it's just it's hard to justify traveling to an event like that and not know what you're going to get into. And so,
How far is it away from you?
so they it's in Denton, Texas is the main one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's
And
closer to me
so,
then. I mean,
yeah, and then they
that's a
did
hot
one.
minute.
Yeah, and so but earlier this I think it was last year, maybe this year. Anyway, maybe it might have been earlier this year. They did one in San Francisco for the
Okay,
first
no,
time,
that
I
would be
guess.
sick.
And have you been in San Francisco?
Dude, I've never been to California. I would go to
I
California
was just
tonight.
there. California is overrated, but anyway.
Oh my God. See,
um,
this is a West Coast thing. Like, you guys are like, it's no big deal. What you're doing is you're like, please don't come here. It's already awesome. We don't need you. That's what
Yeah.
that is. That is
No.
sandbagging. You're like, yeah, we have the best stuff. Like, we have the best weather. Our like golden hour is completely
don't come
different
here.
than yours. Yeah, see, exactly. You're
No,
like,
anyway, no.
it's not that bad. You won't miss anything. That's what that
Anyway.
is.
But nah, San Francisco though, like I've been there several times. I was there in June. I went down to the Stranger Things experience. And San Francisco is kind of just a dump, man. You walk around the city, it is junk everywhere. Homeless people, dude, it's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And outskirts of it, where it's still considered San Francisco, but it's mostly forests and stuff. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's great. But once you get into the city, which is actually San Francisco is not that big. And
Okay.
yeah, it's not. And it's all hills and there's homeless people everywhere. You'll get your car broken into, guaranteed. No matter, you park it for 10 minutes, they don't even care. They'll literally casually walk
You're like
up
on
to your car.
blocks.
But they will bust your window and right. There was a news like team was literally reporting on this. They went out, reported about this. Guess what happened? They came back to their van. It was broken into and all their stuff was stolen. Like, it's bad down there, man. Like, San Francisco.
Dude, when I think of San Francisco, it is not like homeless and extreme.
I will
trash.
send you a video on my Patreon page. I recently released it on Patreon, but when I was in July, or I went down in July, my hotel, bro, it was scary. Literally, there was people dealing. I didn't include it in the video, but I'm walking up to my room and there's just this drug dealer is dealing something right there as I'm right in front of the owner of the hotel. I didn't care. And then my room was literally out of like a horror movie, dude. This should have been a biohazard. Like, it was not good. But San Francisco, it's a dump.
What was so bad about it? I mean, are we talking like, was there like a dead body in the closet or like sheets ripped?
Would not have surprised me. But the windows were boarded up, but literally they weren't. Swear to God, there was the window was smashed with exposed shards of glass, right? But here's the crazy thing: they were using.
Dude, wait. But did you know that it was going to be like this when you like purchase the
Oh,
hotel,
oh,
right?
dude,
Right.
no, this is the second hotel. Okay, so when I was there, okay, get this. So I booked the hotel like a month in advance. Maybe not. Maybe probably about a month in advance. And then a couple days before I was leaving, they got a reminder, hey, your trip's coming up. By the way, here's some important details about your room that you need to know. And in there was like, you don't have a bathroom in your room. And that was not disclosed. I was like, what? And so I had to look up more details. I had to like basically call the hotel and find out what was going on. Like, oh yeah, we have this little other room that's literally like one bathroom for the entire hotel. Like it's just communal. And there's a shower in there, and then there was a toilet, and you had to share it with everybody else. And
wow.
I'm like, what? So I'm like, I need to cancel this. And they're like, yeah, okay, but you're canceling within our range, so you still have to pay for the room regardless. I'm like, you swear to God, it was like $100 gone. And I'm like, okay, I'm not staying there. So I booked another room. Pictures look great, room looked great. Got there. I think it was probably 10 times worse, because by the time I got into the room, there was, oh my God, I'll send you the video. It's an unlisted members video, but you can watch it. But oh my God, dude, the window itself had been like smashed, potentially shot through, because there was a clear bullet hole through the curtain, and on the other side of the wall, directly in front of like where the hole was, like trajectory wise, there was a bullet hole in the wall. And so they boarded it up, but the boards were just like scraps. And one of them was literally a snowboard cut in half. And it was like screwed into the walls and stuff to board this window up. And then they did a poor job at doing it. And there's just these giant chunks of shards of glass just exposed, sticking out the window or into your room. Like if you tripped near the window, you would have died. You could have died.
So none of this did you know when you got to that hotel? Like,
no.
You literally showed up and saw this.
Yeah. So I went back down to the manager. I was like, dude, my room. Oh, I didn't even tell you about everything else.
Yeah.
So
you're like, yo, something's not right here,
bro. There was no light switch to the room. It was motion censored, by the way. More on that later. But I couldn't see anything. So like I walked around the other side of the bed. I took my shoes off, and then I walked around the bed. And then as I'm walking, my socks were like,
oh, you're risking it then.
Bro, my socks were like, because I immediately went in there. I didn't even think anything. Took my shoes off, whatever. And
yeah, because it's a hotel. That's the first thing.
Well,
right?
And I was getting ready to change, because I just got off the airport, or got off my plane. I was getting ready to change into the different pair of shoes that I had brought, because I was going to be walking around the city of San Francisco. And the shoes I were wearing were comfortable shoes for travel. So I took my shoes off, and I started walking on around the bed, and my socks became like adhered to the floor as I was trying to walk. And I'm like, what? And so I look at the floor, and again, it's really almost pitch black in the room, because the light that didn't have a light cover on it. It was just a bulb, and there's no switch even to turn it on or off. It's motion sensor. So I grabbed my phone and shined it on the floor. Bro, this floor had never been cleaned ever. And it looked like somebody, I'm hoping it was Kool-Aid, but it looked like Kool-Aid had spilled all over the floor and it splashed on the wall. It was too light of a red color to be blood, but it could have been. I don't know. But it was the whole floor. It was disgusting. And then I'm in there like getting changed. Room server, like the cleaning lady, just walks in my room. No knock, no nothing. And so I had to take a chair and like put it up against the door handle to like keep them from. They came back twice. They did it twice. Like, oh, I forgot this thing. I'm like, and at that time I was just going to the bathroom. So I was, and they walk in right when I'm like closing the door of the bathroom. So before all that, I went back down to the manager, and I told him, I was like, what is going on with this room? And he's like, oh yeah, this is a low end motel. What'd you expect? I'm like, well, I'm paying $110, I think, for the room for the night. I was only there for one night. And I'm like, I would expect it's not to be a biohazard. And he's like, you could cancel. I didn't
want to get tetanus.
Like, dude, you could cancel if you want, but you'll lose your money. I'm like, like, it was disgusting. So the light switch situation. So when I was trying to sleep, I'd roll over, boom, the lights would just come on. So I barely got any sleep. I had to physically get up out of bed to go push the little the motion sensor button, and that would like
Yeah.
reset it, and it would turn off after I got back in the bed after like 30 seconds or something. Bro, it was brutal. But I guess that's just how San Francisco is in general. But
So,
yeah,
like, I just can't imagine that you're like, you saw the photos, they look nice.
yeah,
I chose this one, and then I get there, and then on top of that, $100. I don't know, maybe just California's expensive, but that's
it
not
is.
cheap. And like
No.
that's a standard like a
Yeah.
Marriott, right? Like that's reasonable for like a normal hotel room, right? For like
Oh
a
yeah.
normal hotel room.
Yeah.
That in that case sounds like it was like I mean, I don't even know if you should be charging for that. First of all, you should probably be closed because you should be cleaning that potentially.
Oh my
But
god, dude, it was. Yeah, they've never cleaned anything, and I I went and bought towels at Target so I could lay them on the floor and feel safe about walking on them, as well as wrapping the pillows with these
yeah, dude.
towels, and
So you don't get like lice or something, right?
yeah, because
Or
the
bed bugs
ones.
or something.
Oh my god! Oh, I didn't even tell you about the mold, dude. There was mold growing on the nightstands on the floor. I wasn't brave enough to look under the bed. I don't even. Who knows what was under there? But like, it was the most terrifying thing. But here's the kicker of all of it: the bathroom, the shower, immaculate. It looked like it was been remodeled. It had to have.
Dude, I would
Someone
have
might
slept
have.
there. I'd be like, that's where I'm gonna hang out.
Dude, I almost slept in the tub.
Yeah,
I
I was just like,
literally
I guess
almost
I'll
slept
take
in the tub.
my
It was a little
stuff. Yeah.
small, but I ended up hiding my stuff in the rooms when I left because I didn't know if room service, but housekeeping would just walk in while I'm gone. So
True. True.
I had my most of my stuff I carried out with me, my most valuable stuff, just in case. But I hid my stuff in the bathroom and positioned it in a way where you couldn't see it because the curtain was in the way. So I had like my bag right there. So if you walk in, you couldn't see it. But then there was a mirror you could see in reflection. So I took the towels and rolled them up and put them on like really nicely on the counter so you block the reflection. So at a glance, if someone broke in and they couldn't see, like there was a bag hiding in the shower. That's how scary this place was. And then during the night there was like literally gunshots and sirens going off. Dude, that's just San
Have you ever
Francisco.
been to San Francisco before?
Yeah. Well, it was a couple
And
times, but just driving through, I never was like, no, that's not
okay.
true. Not true. I did stay a few days in San Francisco on another thing, and it was just an Airbnb.
Okay.
And it didn't have those experiences, but
Because I'm thinking, like, has this happened before? Was this a one-off experience?
oh,
Like,
I've never
was you?
once experienced. I travel a lot. I've never had this experience ever once.
No,
Like I'll stay at a
that's
hotel like
horrible.
at like a Best Western business class, and it's usually like $80, and
Yeah.
you get a nice room. There's usually a breakfast and stuff, but yeah, no, this was the worst. But I walked this multiple times. I've walked San Francisco. There are a couple nice areas, but the majority of it is everything's crammed in. There's homeless people kind of everywhere. It smells weird everywhere you walk. And it's just I would never want to go back there. That's
What
San
about?
Francisco.
Have you ever been to any other part of California,
Oh yeah, I've been all over.
like LA?
Um,
Right.
yeah, so a few years ago I did a road trip. I've done a couple road trips to California actually, but the most extensive one was was filming for a documentary I was creating. I drove all over the state of California because most people that I was interviewing for this were down there. But I drove down to all the way to San Diego, and then. But so I've been in San Diego, LA. I've been to like some outskirts of cities, but I've been all over the place down there. It's pretty, but it's definitely overrated. Honestly, the majority of the good parts of California, you can get the same experiences in Oregon and Washington. Especially the northern part of California, it's pretty much just exactly the same. It's just that once you get to LA and San Francisco, if you want to go there, or even Sacramento or San Diego, those are the places where it's a little bit different. It's more beachy and more like kind of what you would typically think of when you would think of California. But this northern parts, excluding the redwoods. Though the redwoods is something that I still have yet to actually get to go do. I've only ever seen them at night driving through them. Those are pretty
Talking
cool.
about like those big giant,
Yeah, the
right?
sequoia trees. They're
Yeah,
massive. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
I would love to see that too.
Yeah, but I've never been able to see them during the day. It's usually at night when I'm driving through, and I want to at least stop there once and check out Endor. But the San Francisco, I think, is overrated. San Diego is pretty cool and nice. LA is disgusting too.
That one doesn't surprise me as much.
Yeah, that one you can't really go and you can't walk hardly anywhere down there. It's a tourist trap in a lot of places, but yeah, you can get more enjoyment to stick in the Northern California, Oregon, and Washington if you want to get like the aesthetic. Or
what about between Washington and Oregon, coolest state or cooler state? And if so, why?
They both have merits. Like especially where I live, because I live right just over the border of Washington. So Washington has sales tax, Oregon does not. So I'm able to just drive over.
Yeah, you don't have to pay the property tax, so you can avoid that, but also don't have to pay sales tax. There you go.
Yeah, but,
that's how you play the
right
side.
Exactly. Now, as a business owner, though, it's different. I still have to pay the same taxes as Oregon because I own a business. There's income tax and there's sales tax. But if you're anyway, it's a whole. We don't have to get into that. But Oregon doesn't have that. So if you live pretty close to Oregon, you can just go buy all your stuff over there and not have to worry about sales tax. So I'm bigger. I didn't
know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So on larger purchases, it's nice to go over there. You're when I bought the Instax Mini Evo, it's $200. I'm like, jump over to Target in Jansen Beach, aka or Portland, kind of. It's like an island in between Washington and Oregon, or excuse me, from Vancouver to Portland more specifically. There's like this island right in the middle, and it's still considered Portland, but it's called Jansen Beach. But so it's pretty much just a shopping mall, the area center. And so
I was going to say, I know there's a Target there because I've seen it in your video and you mentioned that one.
Yeah. So I go there and then, I didn't have to pay sales tax if I were to have
pretty
it
cool.
shipped. So it's nice for a lot of that things. I mean, I'll still have to pay sales tax on it, unfortunately, because I'm going to use it as a business write-off. So then my tax is now deferred till later. I'm pretty sure. This is my first year with this business, and it's not a retail business. So I wonder if I don't have to do that with that because I'm not reselling it. Interesting. I guess I'll find out later when I do my taxes this next year.
Like March, April. Yeah.
So, but
that's pretty crazy. I didn't know that.
So, any future plans currently for your channel and where you might want to take it right now?
Future plans. So I do have, generally speaking, something I'm working on for it is a company, and I don't know how much I can go into it at this moment. I just know that I'm working on a video. It's not really sponsored, so it's not really like I'm getting anything like spectacular out of it, but they're such a great company and they've been super helpful and they've been so nice. So I'm working on that. In the forefront, realistically, that's kind of like the right now thing that'll probably come out in the next week or so. I did some affiliate links with Moment, which has been really, really awesome. And as far as just generally, it's just, I guess, making more content, hopefully finding more like-minded people that enjoy like film or photography in general, whether it's digital or film or instant or anything like that. I love everything when it comes to that kind of stuff. And obviously I'd love to talk about it with anyone generally. So if you want to, you can obviously find my channel and stuff like that. And I would love to talk about that kind of stuff. I don't have a whole lot of, I guess, overall, I mean, just making more content and continue this like path. I have just some ideas coming out that I want to work with maybe bigger ideas as far as like plans or places to take cameras or things to take photos of. I'd love to branch out. Those are kind of the things that I'm working on right now, I guess, supposedly.
That sounds exciting, especially working with some companies, 'cause I know that can be hard to do when you're not like a huge, large, channel. So that's exciting to hear that you're able to do that.
A good closer, like an anti-icebreaker, if the icebreaker is the first thing and this is the exact opposite, a good closer would just be to say thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me talk to you this long. Thanks for listening to me ramble. And I super apologize for everything you're going to have to cut because I talk too much. So
No.
I just want to let you know that as a fellow editor, I appreciate you very, very much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Where can the fine people find you?
So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. It is always at Pat Cormick. It is the same link basically everywhere. So if you want to find me there, you're more than welcome to come by. Definitely let me know if you saw this and leave it in like a comment or a text or something like that. If it's on Instagram, just let me know. I would love to know that. And I'd love to tell Chris the same thing, that literally that you came from here. So I think it'd be super cool just be able to like, yo, now I know how you know you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down, have a conversation about, it was great. I had a lot of insight, learned a lot, and dusted off some old memories of myself that I've forgotten about. So thank you so much for that. And I'll see you soon. I'm sure we'll talk again and have you back on, maybe during a live stream. We'll see. That'd be pretty fun.
Sounds good. Thank you so much again. I super appreciate it.
Oh man, what a great and epic conversation. This was a long one, and that's only what we ended up recording. We ended up chatting several more hours after we stopped recording. Man, Pat is such a cool guy. And if you guys want to check him out, I highly recommend it. There's going to be links in the description. Go check out his amazing work and what he's putting out over on his YouTube channel. That's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching / listening. I'll see you in the next one. Now get out there, make some art.